All right. What is going on, Laker fans? Thank you very much for tuning in. I'm sure there's some NBA fans out there as well. Appreciate you guys hanging out. Lot going on, and I think nothing going on with the Lakers. I feel like there's a lot going on, but just nothing that has to do with the team that I think most people on here are most interested to talk about. Very excited to have AK, Andy Kamenetsky, Locked On Lakers. Does a fantastic job with his brother. They're all over it on YouTube. Obviously, also a part of 710 ESPN, taking some time to hang out. What's going on, AK? How are you, brother?
Not much, man. Just waiting for the Lakers to do something.
Yeah, I don't know. It's going. It's kind of funny because this is the time of the year, and God bless every Laker fan out there. And I'm kind of the same way, and I know you are as well. Even stories that don't become stories, everyone just wants to consume all of it. And when the dust settles, there's been no moves. So I'm just curious, and I'll get your opinion on this. And I know you're spending a lot of time this time of the year. There's always a lot of rumors and everything else. It's only been a couple of days. Free agency did start on Sunday, but how surprised are you that we're sitting here right now and the only move that the Lakers really have made is re-signing Max Christie?
Well, they did introduce Dalton Connect and Bronny James today.
That's correct there.
And what was funny about that is,
my apologies.
We can get into that presser if you want, because there's some interesting stuff in there. But what I thought was interesting too was it came out in kind of subtle. It felt like it went under the radar, but it doesn't sound like JJ Redick even has a staff yet. like that was dropped in kind of a subtle way. I'm like, what has been going on over these last several days? As far as the idea of whether or not it's surprising, yes, in the sense that it's a shallow free agent class, so you want to try to make your moves quickly because the relatively best free agents, as we saw, go in a hurry. I guess maybe a reason that it's not shocking is just because the Lakers don't have they don't really have any cap space to work with, and they don't have a ton of great assets in terms of trying to manufacture a sign and trade or anything like that. It's well reported they tried to sign and trade for Klay Thompson. The
Sure.
Warriors, the Warriors wouldn't go for it. And then we saw today that they arranged a sign and trade with the Timberwolves for Kyle Anderson. So that, I imagine, is in part why the Warriors weren't interested in what the Lakers were trying to put together as a deal. It's not even necessarily not wanting D'Angelo Russell, even if they didn't want D'Lo. It's we're keeping this space open as an exception because we see other opportunities, which turned into Kyle Anderson.
Yeah, it's funny because I think the Klay Thompson stuff that you just mentioned, and we got a little bit more details of that as we went, and we saw some of the reports out there. Lakers were trying to do a sign and trade with the Warriors. They were going to potentially offer 4 years, $80 million to try to get Klay Thompson. And I just kind of listening to a couple of podcasts and having a chance to, obviously talk about this as well. It feels like, and you tell me if you agree with this or not, they feel like they're a step behind. And what I mean by that is Dallas already made a move to put themselves in a position where there wasn't this, hey, let's wait and see and let us shop around D'Angelo Russell. And I'm sure Klay Thompson was saying to himself, and Travis and I were doing the show this morning, and we were both talking about this to kind of dodge the bullet that I don't know how you feel about giving Klay 4 years, $80 million, but that's what okay. By the way, that scares me even more that was even on the table, that's what the Lakers were trying to do. But let me first, because I think there's a couple layers to this. Let me first say it feels like they're a step behind because Dallas was already in a position to put together a deal where they really didn't need that much help. I mean, yes, it took a second to get the full details out, but nothing that you felt like was going to stop them from making the move. And the Lakers, it was more like, well, if we can do this and if we can get that, they weren't in position to strike while the iron was hot.
Yeah, it's interesting when the Hawks and Pelicans made that deal that sent DeJounte Murray to Atlanta. The Lakers have been linked to DeJounte Murray for a while. It was really well reported that they tried to work out something at the deadline. The Hawks did not want.
I do feel like DeJounte Murray, Zach LaVine, and DeMar DeRozan have each played for the Lakers for 3 years now.
They're going to get their jerseys retired.
And
somehow.
Buddy Hield. And
Yes.
Buddy Hield.
Oh my God. It would be both hilarious and incredibly frustrating if the big fish acquisition ends up free agent Buddy Hield.
That's so funny.
Like that's
so funny.
That
all
would
the
be
guys that the Lakers wanted 3 years ago are the guys
Yeah.
even longer than that they get. But I cut you off on Murray. You were talking about
it would be
Murray.
it would be the darkest of comedy if it ends up Buddy Hield. But like DeJounte Murray, the Hawks didn't want, it was well reported, did not want D'Angelo Russell. They wanted Austin Reeves instead. The Lakers didn't want to move Reeves, and they couldn't find a third team for D'Angelo Russell. And it got me thinking when this deal eventually happened between the Hawks and the Pelicans, which took seemingly a lot of people by surprise. D'Angelo Russell at that point had not yet opted into his deal. And I wonder how much the Lakers got put behind the eight ball just by not knowing until pretty much the last minute that D'Lo was going to opt into that deal. Because if you're trying to make a deal involving him, the teams that you're talking to aren't going to want the uncertainty one way or the other about his status. If you want him as a player, if you want him as an expiring, you would want him to opt in. If you're not interested in him at all, but you could possibly get him in this deal and he opts out anyway, then no harm, no foul. You know what I mean? Like that in and of itself, I hadn't even thought about it until that deal went down. I'm like, wow, they might be a little bit hands tied just with that.
Yeah, that's and I think the other layer of this, and as what you said about when I mentioned to you the 4 years, 80 million, and you're like, no. There could have been a world, and I actually feel like they got a little fortunate in this situation that they didn't have all their ducks in a row. Because if they had all their ducks in a row, and Klay Thompson was looking at, okay, these are my two options. I get 3 years, $50 million with the Dallas Mavericks, or I could get 4 years, $80 million with the Los Angeles Lakers. It's not like the Lakers were the Pistons or it was just some random team out there. Obviously, it is the Lakers. He did grow up in Southern California. There's plenty of ties. Kobe's favorite player. You can go down the list.
His dad calls games for the Lakers.
You and I have at many a times done the pregame show with Michael Thompson. Like he's 20 rows up watching every games and is going to get on the same plane with Klay Thompson when they're traveling on the road. There's plenty of ties to it. What did you think of those reports of the 4 years, 80?
First of all, I think the Lakers dodged a major bullet there. Like the idea that they actually would have paid Klay Thompson that much at nearly 35, or I think he's 35 years old. Like
I think 34 now, but yep.
I mean, unless it was like team options on every single year, that would have been insanely irresponsible. Like I love Klay as a player. I love what he's done with the Warriors, being part of that history.
Sure, he's a winner.
All love Michael.
Period.
Yeah, but that would have been insanely irresponsible. And frankly, that is not worth LeBron potentially taking whatever pay cut. Like, because to be totally honest, I don't think Klay would have made them that much better. Now, if say he got like a 3-year mid-level exception deal, like, okay, fine. Like, I don't think it hurts them to put Klay on this team. But Klay does not put them at this stage of his career so far over the top that you're like, damn the torpedoes, go full speed ahead. No. So in that sense, you could wonder why the Lakers necessarily feel like they even have to overpay that much in order to get Klay Thompson with all those ties to come here. But yeah, they dodged a bullet. If that's really what it was going to take, my sincere best wishes to Klay in Dallas, but no, thank you.
By the way, what you said about having a contract where there's a team option on the second, third, and fourth year, I've never heard of that before. But
I don't even know if that's CBA legal.
Well, here's what I was going to say. If there is a GM or a president of basketball operations that happens to be listening live, throw that in a deal. See what happens. Yeah, you know what I mean? You never
I mean,
know.
like,
You only live once.
Josh Hart has a very unusual deal that was like a team option, then a player option, then like it was.
Yeah.
But I've never heard of just consecutive team options. But I have a feeling that would have insulted Klay.
That's pretty funny. Hanging out here with Andy Kamenetsky, Locked On Lakers. Him and Brian Kamenetsky obviously put up great content on Locked On Lakers. So make sure you check that out on YouTube. I'll put a link to their channel below, so I'll make sure to do that. If you're out hanging out, and I know there's a lot of comments here, AK and I will go till about 9 o'clock. And Andy will take off from there, and then I'll hang out and I'll read some of these comments here. And if you guys don't mind, please subscribe to the channel. AK, one of the names that keeps coming up. This isn't the first time that he's come up with the Los Angeles Lakers. This is not going to be the last. Well, who knows at this stage? I think he's 34 as well. So depending on what he does, this might be the last time that it comes up. But I want to read something. This was coming from Casey Johnson of NBC Sports Chicago. The Lakers' interest is genuine, and the Bulls are open to a sign-and-trade possibility, sources confirmed. But any sign-and-trade would have to be for at least 3 years and at least a less annual salary for what DeRozan wants. I just kind of want to get your opinion on this because of the names that we've heard. Let me just start with this. The fit of DeMar DeRozan, if that's what the Lakers ended up getting, what do you think of DeMar DeRozan on this Lakers team?
I think there are certain things that he brings to the table that the Lakers could really use. I mean, he is a fourth quarter killer as a scorer. Like he was one of the best fourth quarter scorers in the league last year. He is very, very consistent as a scorer. He's very durable.
Sure.
He's 35 years old and he still plays just about every single game. It's not surprising when you look at his game that it's aged very well. You know, he's never been a super above the rim player or anything like that.
Yeah.
He's never been somebody that gets by on extreme athleticism. His mid-range scoring is one of the best in the league, and he is a phenomenal scorer. That being said, and actually too, DeMar DeRozan's become a really underrated playmaker. Like he has become a really, really good facilitator, kind of a point forward because he's really more of a small forward, even like an undersized power forward at this point than a two guard. That being said, though, as far as the pluses, he does not stretch the floor at all.
Sure.
And he's never really been much of an off-ball player. So what you do with him in that regard, you know, maybe it becomes a question of him facilitating more with the ball and other guys around him moving off ball more, or him being utilized as a cutter. And we know JJ Redick's talked about making the offense more creative and more fluid. So maybe there are things that you could do with him there, but he's not the same fit issue as Russell Westbrook, like in terms of as extreme. Like Russ had no mid-range game to speak of, and Russ's ability as, you know, a guy finishing at the rim was really starting to fall off. But there are some of the same concerns that you had with Russ that I think you would have with DeRozan. Just again, not nearly as extreme, and he's not a good defender. I mean, it's never been something he's been particularly good at. It's interesting when you look at the names that have been reportedly on LeBron's list of the guys that he would take a pay cut for.
Yeah.
It brings up the old adage about how sometimes players aren't the best GMs, because I don't think LeBron's chosen all that well, at least in terms of who we know about as far as the guys that he'd be willing to take a pay cut for. Because, you know, James Harden, putting aside the fact that there was no way in hell he was going to get down to that level,
100%.
You'd be talking about him taking like a $50 million haircut. But James Harden,
right, he got 35 a year for 2 years.
Right. I mean, that would have been like the entirety of the contract the Lakers would have been able to offer him. But like, you know, Harden has always been a guy that is very specific to fit teams. Klay is well past his prime. DeMar DeRozan's an unusual fit. Jonas Valanciunas was random. I mean, I could see ways to use him, but he didn't necessarily jump to mind as like the guy the Lakers would be making their number one target this offseason. Like a guy like Dorian Finney-Smith, I have no idea if he's on LeBron's list or not, but to me, he makes a lot more sense addressing
really nice
needs
piece
for the Lakers
Sure.
and likely costs you, he's going to cost you something, but likely costs you less. But I can see the appeal of DeRozan. I don't think it is a slam dunk fit. I like him as a player. I think there are ways he can help a lot, but it's going to take some creativity. I've seen some people suggest, including in this chat, that you would maybe have DeMar come off the bench. I'd be surprised if he agreed to it, but maybe that's the trade-off to manufacturing a way to give him the contract that he wants.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to George Sedano yesterday, and I think him and I were both on the same page, and you might feel otherwise. I just don't see why would DeMar take the mid-level? Like, I'm assuming DeMar is trying to work out something where there is a sign and trade. And he does get an opportunity to make some money. I think in a perfect world for the Lakers, it's the mid-level. The conversation that we were having about Klay was on the mid-level. And then next thing we know, they're offering 4 years, $80 million. It's like, well, I didn't know that was on the table. But I think they're going to first have to figure out, and I'm sure DeMar DeRozan is going to try to take advantage of, hey, if I could financially, let me see if I could get that part figured out. I think what you just said, and like you said, some suggestions. I've heard Jovan Buha talk about this as well. Would a guy like DeMar DeRozan, would he, and I don't even know if it's a swallow his pride, because I don't feel like DeMar, and maybe I'm off on this one, but he doesn't take me as a guy with this huge ego. I never met the guy, but as I watch, I think there's certain guys that you could look at and maybe you gauge a little bit of a pulse for.
I've met him a few times. For what it's worth, I've found him very down to earth.
Doesn't it seem like that? So, and that's a great example. I wonder if he's a player at this stage of his career where that's not a big deal. If it's I just want to compete and have a shot at doing something that I really have not had an opportunity in my career. I know they were knocking on the door in Toronto, but it's not like they got to the NBA Finals and that. And I'm not even telling you that this Lakers roster would offer him that. But DeMar coming off anybody's bench of a good team in the NBA, it's like, wow, that's a great, to have that guy coming off. That's a pretty damn good piece coming off the bench.
Yeah, as far as the money, like I started looking for old articles because they brought in Russ. They had been linked to DeMar DeRozan. There had been some conversations between the Lakers and at the time the Spurs, because he was a member of the Spurs. He ended up eventually doing a sign and trade with Chicago. But there had been some issues landing on the number that DeMar wanted then. And then they eventually ended up pivoting to Russ. And there were some reports too that they were internally as an organization, and even I think some players split on DeMar, but the money seemed to be something of a sticking point then. And we're reading now that the money may be something of a sticking point right now. This is, both Woj and I think Casey Johnson from NBC Sports Chicago were talking about how he maybe wants to do a 1-year deal so he can get back into free agency next year, when I think there's maybe a little more stability with knowing what the cap's going to be at, thinking there could be a little more money out there. It might affect him with the age 38 rules, stuff like that. But maybe it ends up a 1-year thing with the Lakers, which would not be the worst thing in the world.
That's not bad.
With a guy DeMar's age, but I say this without any judgment at all, because I don't blame guys for trying to get the money that they want. And DeMar DeRozan's a really good player still. So if he wants to get paid at what he sees as his market value, good for him. But it does seem like the money the last time around and this time around is a thing, because the number that he eventually got from Chicago was way bigger than what the Lakers, it was like 3.85. I don't think it was possible for the Lakers to manufacture that type of deal, even if they wanted to. If memory serves, I don't think that was even a possibility.
Hanging out here with Andy Kamenetsky, Locked On Lakers. If you guys got some comments around 9:00, I'll start looking at the comments and go through that. Feel free, if you throw anything in the super chat, I'll make sure to read it. But nonetheless, I'm going to try to get to your comments. AK, of all the players that you've kind of heard, and I'm just curious to get your thoughts of how at this point can the Lakers walk away and you could say, you know what, that was a good offseason. And let me throw in kind of some of the names that we've heard. So I mentioned DeMar DeRozan, Jeremy Grant's name you've seen thrown around, Cam Thomas's name you've seen thrown around, Dorian Finney-Smith is another name.
Cam Thomas or Cam Johnson?
Or was it Cam Thomas or Cam Johnson? I thought it was Cam Thomas, but
I can't imagine. I cannot imagine Brooklyn would trade.
Maybe it was Cam Johnson. But obviously that's the tie with Brooklyn as well. Again, there's a kind of another wing player that you're looking at. What other names? We've heard Brook Lopez's name being thrown out. You'd have to go.
That's a weird
trade for him. You'd have to actually go trade for him because he's still got still as far as his contract goes.
Kuzma, I've seen come up.
Kuzma just recently, another name that's come up. What do you make of all these names? Is there a fit that you feel like, and I know for a quick second there you mentioned Dorian Finney, but is there a fit and something that you think is realistic that the Lakers can do where we walk away and say, you know what, that was a good offseason?
Jeremy Grant, there's two things. One, you got to be willing to stomach a long deal. Like he's owed about another $130 million or something through, I want to say 27, 28 when he has a player option, which if I had to guess, I'm already willing to bank that as getting picked up. So you got to be willing to stomach that for a while. And I would want to know, can he be a small forward defensively? Because you can't ask that of LeBron as a full-time thing at this stage of his career. I mean, he is pacing himself defensively at the 4. You can't ask him to do that as a 3. And it's been a while since Jeremy Grant has defended 3s regularly. So I would want to get a good sense of, can he do that? Like, that's what makes it like him or Kuzma, like guys like that I think could be helpful. But with one of the things that I think is under-discussed in terms of the challenges for Rob Pelinka, and I think also the challenges for JJ Redick, in certain respects, the challenges for Anthony Davis and the rest of the guys on the team, is you have to do a lot of pacing of LeBron for like the first 50 to 55 games a year. Mm-hmm. So when you and that's just a reality. It's not a criticism of LeBron, but he's pushing 40. Like, he can't go balls out for 82 games and then the playoffs. So like,
he's got to try harder.
Well, look, I mean, we saw what maybe was taken out of LeBron just from the IST. Sure. Like, LeBron looked exhausted for about 3 weeks after the IST because he played really hard. Because
but when you walk into crypto, you go take a little look at those banners there. You don't have to look too far.
LeBron was making, I think, I actually called this like 2 or 3 weeks before it happened. He was making like a long play that eventually the IST will be a part of NBA culture and something that really is a big deal. Like, 5 to 10 years from now, where it's institutionalized as something that fans get into, younger fans. Like, it's really not meant for people our age. It's really meant for, like, my daughter's 13. It's meant for fans, teenagers, 20s. Like, it becomes something they grow up with. Assuming it becomes a big thing, LeBron is going to be known as the leader of the first team that won the IST. I think that matters to him. NBA history matters to him. I think he was making a long play, but there was a price to be paid for it.
Sure.
And the point being, like, it complicates how you go about making trades. Like, D'Angelo Russell, for all of his flaws, and those flaws are real, he's at worst the 4th best player on this team. I think you can make an argument he was the 3rd best Laker last year. He's not expendable. You know what I mean? He's not untouchable by any stretch, but he's not expendable. And in a perfect world, you would want to be adding pieces to him still there. If you're going to trade him out, you need to make sure that you're not just making lateral moves. Like, same thing with like Rui and Vando, if he's healthy. Those are 3 of the top 6 players on the Lakers. So it becomes complicated when some of their most tradable pieces, like as far as just the contract size, are also the guys that you kind of need on the roster, especially when, again, LeBron is going to need that type of help over the course of 82 games. So I think you can't be trading someone, especially a guy like D'Lo, who produces. Like last year, he may have struggled at times in the playoffs, but they don't make the playoffs last year without him. Like they flat out do not. So you got to make sure that whoever you trade D'Lo for, that's an 82 game player. So I think it makes it more complicated. And I think sometimes fans don't think about it that way because LeBron is still producing at an amazing level. And what he's done is astonishing. There's no template, but it's not uncomplicated. And I think that makes things legitimately more difficult for Rob Pelinka, even if you feel like, and I think it's justified, Rob Pelinka has largely put himself in this position.
It's a perfect transition. Literally one of my banners here, and we'll just get to it right now. I think there's, it's interesting with Rob Pelinka. It's interesting that Travis and I were talking about this morning, and I was telling Trav that, look, there's a lot of pressure on Rob right now to make sure that you're not coming back with the same roster. There's a lot of pressure on him to try you're juggling the LeBron piece, the trying to win now. Oh, by the way, here's a coach that's never coached before. Oh, by the way, we also are going to develop. They're a little bit all over the place. And I think that's me trying to be nice. And when I was telling Trav, I'm like, Trav, there's an incredible amount of pressure. I don't think you can roll the ball back in October. Doesn't it? D'Lo, we were just talking about D'Angelo Russell, I feel like, has been traded 4 times by the Lakers. He's still on the Lakers.
Yeah.
I mean, even the moment his quotes they just got printed out about him saying he wants to compete for a championship. He's excited for JJ Redick. He's opting into his contract. And then 2 days later, it's like Lakers were trying to give D'Angelo Russell the Golden State Warriors.
Well, I think he wants to be. I think D'Lo genuinely wants to be here. Like, I think he really wants to be a Laker. That's the irony of all this. He really wants to stay.
But I don't know if, I think it's clear that the Lakers don't feel the same way. And I was telling Trav, I'm like, part of me I feel bad for D'Lo. I'm like, just give this guy a chance to go play somewhere where he's actually wanted. And unfortunately for him, I don't know if that exists or where that exists. But I guess the point that I was trying to get to on the Pelinka piece, there is pressure on Rob Pelinka. Trav's point was there was a lot of pressure on him when it was time to trade Russell Westbrook. And he waited. Yeah. And he waited for the right move. And he should be complimented for that. I've probably been more critical on the Pelinka piece of it. And I think my biggest issue is I just don't know what the Lakers' identity is. I hate the recycling of coaches. It has more to do with that. What are your thoughts on Rob Pelinka?
I think Pelinka has at times made good moves. I think at times he's made terrible moves. I don't think he's followed up good decisions consistently with more good decisions. I think his decisions can be kind of all over the place. I think whether he is a victim of Jeannie Buss's impatience or his own impatience, or I think sometimes this organization can be a prisoner of its own history. And the whole, we only play for championships if, championship or bust. That's a great ethos in terms of what you want as your aspirational goals at all time. But if you treat every single season as if we don't win a championship, it was an absolute failure, and therefore everything is on the table in terms of change, you're never going to build anything. And you're never really going to move forward in a direction that makes sense, that can be easy for everybody to follow. Like with JJ Redick, for example, I can tell you right now that if they don't have legitimate patience with his growth, and if they evaluate him on the overall record and how far they get in the playoffs versus does he seem to be growing as a coach, you might as well just fire him now. You might as well just fire him now and get this over with and move on to the next guy. Like, the standard cannot always be championship. What you should always be thinking about are we moving closer? Are we moving in a direction that makes sense towards that championship? Like, Darvin, I think, needed to be fired ultimately because he lost the locker room.
Sure.
But the idea that you would fire him because they lost in the first round, I mean, I think Darvin regressed as a coach in his second season, and that was alarming, but that was not a championship caliber roster. And you cannot evaluate him based on whether or not they won a championship. Or like with Frank Vogel, hell, he did win a championship, but they clearly never bought into him to begin with. Like, I mean, they gave him that fake 1-year extension, which was a joke. Like it was
literally fake. Like the contract was not real.
I mean, that's not a real thing. Like a 1-year extension is not a thing. Like that's not something that exists.
Like it doesn't even have, Frank was like, it doesn't even have my name on it.
It's just a piece of paper.
Walton's name is still on here.
It just says extension. That's all it says on it. But like, ever since Dr. Buss passed away, it's felt like the organization has been incredibly impatient, like in basically to prove themselves that they can move forward without Dr. Buss. And I think one of the things that they are actually missing in trying to evaluate the things Dr. Buss did well was he was patient. Like, he was a poker player. If you play poker, you don't go all in every single hand.
Sure.
Like, you don't push your chips in every single hand. You'll be a terrible poker player.
Yep.
Like, when Kobe demanded a trade and, he called Dr. Buss an idiot, like publicly, did all that stuff. They reacted by looking around a little bit. They didn't see a trade they wanted. And they said no. And, it took them months before they eventually traded for Pau Gasol. And the team, by the way, turned out to be better than a lot of people, including me, thought. But, they were patient with it. Phil Jackson, his first 2 seasons when he returned after the 1-year hiatus, Lakers got bounced in the first round twice, once after blowing a 3-1 lead. I don't recall Phil Jackson ever being on the hot seat.
Sure.
And it's not just because he was Phil Jackson. I'd like to think is because they recognize this team can't win a championship. Like Del Harris got several years with the Lakers before eventually he needed to go. But you have to give the people that you're working with an actual opportunity to succeed. And I think that's one of the things that they need to be thinking about as they evaluate every long-winded way of saying it, but that they need to be thinking about this as they evaluate everything.
I think it's a great observation. And I think the point about, I guess that's my biggest frustration is I don't know what the direction is. And I think you could tell from that front office, there is instant panic. And I think the Darvin Ham, I do think when Anthony Davis says, we don't know what we're doing on both sides of the floor. Okay. You probably kind of knew right there. Well, Darvin Ham's gone. But if I go back a little bit, okay, but Pelinka, you put Darvin Ham there. And now that we're looking at JJ Redick, are we going to have a time or a moment or anything, like you said, a situation where Lakers go on a 6-game losing streak in January and then they're knocked out in the first round of the playoffs? Or, by the way, forget the first round of the playoffs. What if they just don't make the playoffs? Right. They're a bubble team. And, okay, does that mean he's on the hot seat? And I'm with you I just don't know the identity and I don't really know the direction of it. Personally, for me, if I'm playing poker, Jack 7, I'm kind of all in. You know what I mean?
You know what?
I got a Jack on there.
I actually, years ago, I think this was in my first year covering the Lakers full time. It was for the LA Times. I was doing the Lakers blog for them. It was the first sports blog the LA Times ever put out. But I went to this Lakers event, this charity poker event, and I was so excited. Like, I got to play in this. And I ended up at one point at a table with both Dr. Buss and Jim Buss. I took out Dr. Buss in one hand. I didn't take him out of the table, but I did beat him in one hand. He seemed distracted. He was entertaining guests, and I'll leave it at that. Sure. This was not real money. Fair enough. Also, even acknowledging that this was, it was a charity tournament, nobody was walking away with money. I found Jim Buss's style alarmingly loose. I was watching him at the table. I'm like, bro.
Can I tell you something? Right when you said Jim Buss was there and Dr. Buss, I'm like, Jim Buss, I would just imagine like that's easy money. I'm getting that money right there. Dr. Buss, I'm staying the hell away from. He plays in the hand, I'm out.
Charity tournaments. So I was like, you know what? I want to play in a hand with Dr. Buss, which was
that's cool.
Awesome. But Jim was like, bro, like, dude, even for charity, what are you doing,
Say
my
no
man?
more.
That's how you end up with Luol Deng and Timofey Mozgov.
And Mozgov. How about that offseason?
Years later, it finally made sense to me.
It all clicked. AK, I know you got to take off. So thank you for hanging out. I really appreciate you coming on. Would love to do this again soon.
Can I address one comment, please?
Yeah. Yep.
This is from I saw a comment, Andy Cat 109.
Okay.
Brian, being my brother, is a dope. Both being me and Brian, irritating as hell. You're welcome, Andy Cat 109.
Well, whether he likes it or not, the Laker content is amazing, and you can find all on Locked On Lakers. So,
thank you.
AK, thank you for hanging out, brother. We'll talk soon.
Yep.
And I'm going to stay on here with the guests. I know you're going to go out and do your thing.
Cool.
Okay. We'll see you, buddy. That is Andy Kamenetzky there of Locked On Lakers. You know, that's fun. He is one of my favorite guys to talk Lakers with. I've worked with AK for a long time over at 710 ESPN. So him and I have spent a lot of time together. So I love AK. He's a good dude. As promised, I'm going to get to some of these comments here. And I would love to hear from Laker fans here. I'll try to get to as many as I can. By the way, like I mentioned a little bit earlier before, if you have a super, throw the super on, and I'll make sure to get to it 100%. But I'm also going to try to get some of the other these comments as well. Listen, it's a frustrating offseason so far for the Lakers. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you guys, but here we are a couple days in. Last night I was doing Lakers talk. I did my show this morning with Travis Rogers, and we were hanging out. We're talking a little bit of Lakers. I actually got to interview. This was kind of cool. So we didn't know if we were going to get both of them or not, but earlier on 710 ESPN was doing the show. You can go back, by the way, on the ESPN LA app or go to their YouTube page. You can catch our interviews. We got Dalton Connect. We got a chance to talk to him. We got Bronny James. We got a chance to talk to him. So we got a chance to talk to both of those players. But the offseason has been very disappointing. Nothing's happened. And my fear is nothing will happen. I understand the argument too, and I think it's a fair point. Some people out there are saying, well, you can't just make a move and make a bad move. I'm not encouraging to make a bad move. What I'm saying is, Pelinka, you got to find a way to improve this roster. And every single day that goes by, I feel like the less chance the Lakers are going to have to improve the roster by the time we get to next year. All right, let's take some of these comments. Daniel Contreras, what do you think about trading Rui, Vando, Wood, and 2 first-round picks for Jared Allen and George Niang? It works money-wise. No, I would wait. Those are not the guys that I'm trading my 2 first-rounders for. I think Rui and Vando do have some. I do think that they have value. So for me personally, I'm not making a move like that. If you're going to use 2 first-round picks, I need something better. And it's not that I don't like Jared Allen and Niang. To be honest with you, I'm not sure if that's an answer. But I need something else. If I'm giving up my assets, these are the only 2 first-rounders that I have right now that I could use. I'd prefer using something else. Okay, let's look at some more of these comments right now. We need 100% rebuild, but delusional, unrealistic Laker fans won't let us. Well, I think that's on the front office too. I mean, I don't think the front office is looking to rebuild. The one position I don't like being in, and just seeing the Lakers in their situation, I don't like being in the middle. And I feel like that's exactly where the Lakers are, where I don't feel like they're good enough to where we really take them serious enough to go win an NBA championship or just be one of the teams that's in the hunt. And they're not bad enough to go get some real draft picks that you feel like are going to be effective enough to kind of change the future of your team. And we know how the Lakers operate. They're not patient. I loved what Andy Kamenetsky was saying there. And he's saying that, you got to let things marinate. I think I've heard Was it Colin Cowherd? I heard saying this one time. He said that there's certain teams like the Lakers where they want to microwave everything. Time cook, 2 minutes, let's get that thing going. There's other teams that will go 4, 5, 6, 7 years. They'll put that food in the oven and they'll give it time to actually bake. It always tastes better out of the oven than it does in the microwave. And I like that analogy. I think it was Cowherd that had that analogy. I like that analogy. I do think the Lakers sometimes are just trying to hit the microwave button and get as much as they possibly can. But this thing about 100% rebuild, let me tell you what 100% rebuild is. 100% rebuild is LeBron's not on the team. You're trading away Anthony Davis. You're basically doing something similar to what the Oklahoma City Thunder did, where it was 3, 4, 5 years of just straight rebuild. I do agree with you on that. I don't think the Lakers are going to be doing that. When I say I do agree with you, I agree with the fact that Laker fans nor this front office would allow something like that to happen. And the Lakers don't have to build the way the Oklahoma City Thunder do. They're in a much different position. You guys are smoking. I don't get what part I was smoking in, but I can tell you right now I'm not smoking. Wouldn't mind, but I'm just not. Slee, we got to accept the fact we got to wait till the All-Star break or get a good player on a bad team like Dallas did. We just got to stay afloat till then. This is a conversation and a topic that came up a little bit earlier today. Is it, hey, do you have to make a deal right now? Or if you don't find the deal you like, you know what? Screw it. Walk into the regular season, have the exact same squad, and take your chances during the regular season. There's certain you could trade after December 15th. You could trade after January 15th or December 15th and January 15th. There are two dates out there. I can't remember the dates off the top of my head. The argument was, do you just walk into the season with the same team? Here's my only issue with walking into the season with the same team. I really do believe this. I think you got to trade D'Lo. For D'Angelo Russell's sanity, I think you got to trade D'Angelo Russell. Like, this man is being used in every single trade conversation. I remember reading stories. Maybe it was Jovan Buha that reported on this. The moment that if D'Angelo Russell opts in, the moment that he takes that player option, and we obviously all know what that meant, the moment that he did that, Lakers were under complete control again. He's going to be used as a chip to get traded again. And just yesterday, we were seeing reports that Klay Thompson, as part of the deal that the Lakers were trying to get Klay Thompson, they were shopping D'Angelo Russell to the Golden State Warriors. Are we sure we're okay with D'Angelo Russell walking back into next season knowing that this team is literally any opportunity they get, they're trying to trade him? I don't know how D'Angelo Russell would do with that psyche. I wouldn't do very well in that psyche. I know he's making $18+ million. I know he's probably got more money than he's ever going to need in his life. I understand all that. I understand he plays basketball for a living, and there's other things to be more stressed about. However, the company that you work for clearly does not think that you can be a part of a championship team. And I got to be honest with you, I don't disagree with him. But the notion of just wait until the All-Star break, I have a difficult time thinking you could just walk in with the same roster. I have a difficult time thinking a guy like D'Angelo Russell can just get on board and say, hey, it's all good. It's okay. I'm just going to go give the team that I'm playing for everything I got, even though I know that any chance that they get to trade me, they're going to try to trade me. So it's a good comment, ZJ, and I appreciate the comment, but that's my thoughts on that. All right, let's get couple more of these in here. J Sports Enthusiast. Lakers aren't winning a chip this year, not without a top 5 player. LeBron will be 40 this year. AD doesn't want the throne. The Los Angeles Lakers shouldn't make any trades that will hinder their future. Be smart, LA. If I don't think LeBron's walking in, and maybe I'm wrong on this because maybe LeBron's going to get everything he wants anyways, and it doesn't matter. LeBron got his son on this team. LeBron, whether they want to admit it, don't want to admit it, all that stuff. JJ Redick, clearly a personal friend of LeBron James, is now going to be coaching this team. LeBron wants to win. And if this is one of his few opportunities to win, then they will use those assets. I saw the quote today. I got to find it. And to be honest with you, I don't have it right now. So I don't have it in front of me. But I know he was talking about, there was a quote from Rob Pelinka a little bit earlier today that said something to the effect, if we can find something that's going to improve us, we will use our picks to make a trade. Last trade deadline, if you guys remember this at the trade deadline, Rob Pelinka was like, look, I didn't make a trade. And he acknowledged that he didn't make a trade, but said, I got 3 draft picks coming up this summer. I don't think the Lakers are going to, they're not going to not make a move because of those picks. And the only reason why, Jay, that I'm mentioning all this, that I'm spending some time on this, is because whether you think they can win a championship or not, and it's fair, I think most people right now would say, yeah, Lakers are not in that conversation of winning an NBA championship. It's completely fair. I completely understand that. But they don't believe that. And they're not going to sit back and think that they're not a move away from potentially competing for a championship. The teams that the Lakers are trying to catch right now in the Western Conference, I'll list them all to you. And it's a pretty long list. They're trying to catch Minnesota, Denver, which got worse because they don't have KCP, Dallas, who got better, OKC, who in my opinion is going to have the best record in the Western Conference again, and they're real deal. Do not be surprised at all if the Oklahoma City Thunder are representing the Western Conference in the playoffs. Those are 4 teams right there. I didn't mention the Pelicans, who I thought got better. I didn't mention Memphis, who's going to be better. I didn't mention Phoenix. We'll see what happens with Golden State. And I'm sure I'm missing Sacramento, 4-0 against the Lakers. I saw them that they're trying to make a run at Lauri Markkanen. There's a lot of teams that the Lakers are going to have to, obviously just to be in the conversation in the Western Conference. So that's going to be a challenge. Greg here. By the way, appreciate everybody that sent a super chat. Greatly appreciate that. I'll still try to get to the other comments, but if you send a super, I'll 100% read it. Regardless, I appreciate everybody hanging out. Over 750 people right now hanging out. And I appreciate Andy Kamenetsky hanging out on the show as well. Hey, I'm a big fan. I heard JJ needs assistance. I might be available soon. So, Greg, and thank you for your sacrifice. What's crazy? And AK mentioned this. Andy Kamenetsky mentioned this for a second. He said that today, during that presser where they're introducing Dalton Knecht, they're introducing, obviously they're introducing Bronny James as well. It's as if they don't have their assistants lined up yet. And I really, really hope that when the dust settles, the Lakers get really good, experienced assistants to help out JJ Redick, but still nobody in line there. That's what I mean. I feel like just a lot of this stuff around the Lakers, to me, it just seems sloppy. It's the best way that I can put it. The not having your ducks in a row to, if you wanted to do a sign and trade with with Klay Thompson, well, you couldn't do it because you weren't in a position to, while the Dallas Mavericks were already in a position. The way that kind of Dan Hurley stuff went down, and then it's like, okay, we'll get JJ Redick, and then still not here with your assistant set up. I feel like they're a step behind, and I use the word, and I'm not trying to use it lightly. I believe it. They feel sloppy. The organization feels sloppy right now. That's not a good feeling. If you're rooting for your team, and maybe I'm too harsh on them. It could honestly just be that. Maybe I'm too harsh on them, but I feel like there's some sloppiness in the way the Lakers have been running things. All right, see what else we got here. All Rob cares about is making sure Bronny has everything he needs. What's crazy? And I kind of feel for Bronny James on this. Having a chance to talk to him a little bit earlier today, just listening to him. And it's like, look, you're eventually going to have to go out there and prove to everybody that you belong in this league and you're going to be a target. Like, think about other NBA players right now that are waiting for an opportunity to play against Bronny James and really try to punk him, right? Try to make him look like you don't belong in this league. He's going to have his hands full, and whatever that looks like. And, I understand that JJ Redick is supposed to say he's on this team because of his work ethic and how hard he's worked and this and that. No, he's not. I know you're supposed to say that, but no, he's not. He's on the team because his dad is LeBron James. So, is what it is there. But he's going to have, he's going to have a difficult time trying to figure out how to make it in this league. So it's going to be up to him to figure it out. And frankly, because he's a Los Angeles Laker, obviously I'm rooting for him, and I hope he's able to make it happen. Okay, let's get some more. Warriors got Buddy Hield. Did that just go down? Okay, so who they get earlier? They got Kyle Anderson, and they just got Buddy Hield. So they're trying to figure some stuff out. By the way, them losing Klay Thompson, to be completely honest with you, I don't think it was the biggest loss in the world for them. It just had more to do with the shock factor that he was there for 13 years, that dynasty was over. But I understand them, thinking that it wasn't going to work with Klay Thompson. Okay. Warriors didn't even make the playoffs. So even if you brought him back, what were you going to do? Okay, something that we got here a couple minutes ago. Dwayne Casey. Okay, this is an interesting one. Dwayne Casey, this is Dave McMenamin 2 minutes ago. Dwayne Casey has withdrawn his name from consideration for the Lakers staff, sources told ESPN. Casey wrestled with the decision, but ultimately did not want to uproot his family at this time. About 4 days ago, McMenamin had put out a tweet, and he put out a tweet. The Lakers have expressed interest in Dwayne Casey joining JJ Redick's staff. So now we know that Dwayne Casey is out of the mix. He is not going to be a part of the Lakers staff. That just came out a couple of minutes ago from Dave McMenamin. So, and now I'm reading here, Shams just put out the Golden State Warriors are in serious talks on a sign and trade deal to acquire Buddy Hield. Warriors and Sixers have been in deep discussions. That was about 10 minutes ago, so maybe that one got done, or I don't know if that's what you guys were reading off. I'll tell you the one name to really, really, really keep an eye out on, and it doesn't sound like the Lakers are going to be a part of this conversation, but the one name to really, really watch the rest of the offseason is Lauri Markkanen, because he can 100% end up on a team like the Sacramento Kings, the San Antonio Spurs. I've heard even some rumors there about the Golden State Warriors. He can 100% end up on a team like that. And the last thing we need is Lauri Markkanen to end up on another good Western Conference team. That would certainly be another headache. So as I open up Twitter, and I haven't opened in the last hour, Warriors making moves. I just saw this from Trevor Lane, bouncing back from losing Klay, getting Kyle Anderson, and now Buddy Hield. Dwayne Casey not coming to the Los Angeles Lakers, so they're still trying to figure out what the rest of their assistants are going to look like. And that's obviously going to be another critical piece. We're not even talking about that piece, and we're just not talking about it because there's other things to talk about, and you want the players to improve, and you want the roster to improve. But eventually you're going to have to figure out, obviously, the rest of that coaching staff. I'm assuming these are the names these are other teams. You're right. I probably didn't even mention the Spurs when we were talking. I know I didn't mention the Houston Rockets, and the Houston Rockets look like they're a team that's up and coming. Memphis, I think I mentioned, is another team that could be a headache. Do you trust Rob Pelinka? I do not, to be honest. Warriors got Hield. Still no moves from LA. Beast mode. Appreciate the super. I don't know if you got I don't know Rob Pelinka personally. I've had brief conversations with him, have got a chance to, obviously cover the team and ask him questions, but I don't have a personal I don't have a personal relationship with Rob. So it's not like I could sit here and tell you, hey, trust the guy. I don't trust the guy. I don't know. I think what I'm most hoping for with Rob Pelinka is he's a visionary. that he's playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers, that he's thinking 2 steps ahead. I don't have that feeling that that's the case. My personal opinion. So, do I trust him? I don't know him of whether to have that opinion on him, but his job is not for me to trust him. His job is to, obviously try to put together the best roster for the Lakers. Jay Sports, appreciate it. Alan, I just don't think we should try and get rid of all of our young assets. Rui, Reeves, Max for one player. If LeBron was Giannis, SGA, or Luka, we'd say we have a championship team. Our number one option is too old. Can I tell you something? Of all the names that you have out there, I think 2 of those names are not going anywhere. I don't think Max Christie's going anywhere. I don't think Austin Reeves is going anywhere. Teams have asked about Austin Reeves. I think the Lakers could have got DeJounte Murray if they included Austin Reeves. Lakers chose not to. Rui, I think, is a piece that if the Lakers had to get rid of and they found the right player, they would trade him. So of those guys that you're mentioning right there, I don't think those are young assets, and they're good young assets. Rui, I think of all of them, to me is I have no idea what I'm going to get every night. Max Christie, I'm hoping that JJ Redick actually gives this guy a lot of opportunities, and he kind of puts himself in a position where next year we can say, right or wrong, hey, Max Christie's got a bright future. This guy's moving in the right direction. And I feel like that's the case. And to be honest with you, anybody that I talk to that covers the team, any Laker fans that I talk to, I think everybody feels that way about Max Christie. I don't think Max Christie's going anywhere. I don't think Austin Reeves is going anywhere. Rui, listen, if it's the right move and you got to do it, I don't know how much sleep I'm going to lose if Rui Hachimura is not on this Lakers team. Just the inconsistency part with Rui Hachimura. And they got to find ways to improve the roster. But of the young assets you're talking there, I only think there's one on there that would actually end up going somewhere. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Beast Mode, what I mean about trust as a GM, not a person. As a GM, no, I'm not that comfortable, with Rob Pelinka steering the ship, right? No, just think about the term that I just used so far in the offseason. I feel like it's been sloppy, and by the way, it's not like every general manager. I think the Denver Nuggets are getting worse. I think they've kind of put themselves in a weird position. The Milwaukee Bucks seem like they're a little bit all over the place. Philly's taken a big chance on Paul George for 4 years, even though I think they have to do it. There's good franchises out there and good teams that are also not in a great position. That's not uncommon. So it's not just Rob Pelinka, but just from a Pelinka perspective, if I'm using the term sloppy, then I probably don't trust Rob Pelinka when it comes to here's the keys, do whatever you want. I have you have complete control and I have full trust in what you're doing. But there's a lot of GMs that I think you would feel the same way about. So I don't know if that's just exclusive to Rob. I think that's just in general. Okay, let me get to a couple more comments here, and then we're going to wrap this thing up. We're almost going an hour tonight. Let's see this. Tracy Johnson. Alan, what do you think of this tweet from O'Shea Jackson? West Coast teams don't want Lakers successful. East Coast teams don't want Braun successful. I don't know if that's exclusive to the coasts. I think, yes, there are more West Coast teams that don't want the Lakers to win. And I'm talking about teams think about the teams that we grew up on in the Western Conference. Phoenix is not like the Lakers, that fan base. Portland hates the Lakers. Sacramento hates the Lakers. The Denver Nuggets, the Golden State Warriors. Maybe it's more coastal on that side, or you could look at West Coast teams or Western Conference teams, maybe from that perspective. But I think it is more to do with people just hate on success. A lot of people don't like the Yankees. A lot of people don't like the most popular teams, like the Cowboys. A lot of people don't like the most popular players. I don't know if that's an Eastern or that's an East Coast thing. That's a West Coast thing. I think that's just common. Maybe it's a little bit more common on the West Coast because those teams actually face the Lakers more, but not 100% sure. Lakers penny pinching again and blaming the CBA. Can I tell you something about the CBA? I'm probably going to wrap it up after this. And by the way, means a lot to have 800 people on here that are watching live right now. So I appreciate you guys doing that. And if you get a quick second, please subscribe to the channel as well. I greatly appreciate that. This CBA is affecting everybody. 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 And you just got to be smarter. I don't know if it's penny pinching. It literally affects you in so many different ways if you're not following it. I mean, I'm going to use the Clippers as an example. The Clippers, in a league where you just always sign players when you have them, told Paul George since last season, giving you 3 years, they never budged. And that's why Paul George is playing for the Philadelphia 76ers. The Denver Nuggets last year let Bruce Brown and Jeff Green go. You're going to tell me that the Denver Nuggets this past year lost to the Minnesota Timberwolves? You don't think they could have used a Bruce Brown and a Jeff Green? And now they're watching KCP go sign with the Orlando Magic? I feel like a lot of teams are looking at the CBA much differently than they have in the past. So that part's a little bit interesting. And we'll obviously see how that continues to affect the rest of the league. Okay. Laker fans, NBA fans, I'm going to read this one as the last one. Good night, y'all. God bless. And call your mothers. Okay. There you go. I appreciate everybody hanging out tonight. This was fun. Andy and I were going to go a little bit earlier. I kind of screwed up on a couple of things. So we went about a good 30 plus minutes. So if you're just getting in right now, Andy Kamenetzky, Locked On Lakers, hung out for a while. And I actually like the way I really did that there, to have a chance to do that and then follow that up with just kind of taking some of your guys' comments. That might be a good idea for me to do that down the road. Anything goes down with the Lakers, I'll be back. I got my radio show tomorrow on 710 ESPN with Travis Rogers. Feel free to hang out there. And then we got the 4th of July weekend coming up. So a lot of people with 4-day weekends. I will tell you something going on. We'll get back on here and we'll talk Lakers basketball. So thank you for doing this, guys. Appreciate it. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your night, and we'll get with you guys soon. Thank you.